És most átadom a szót Verena Schmidt asszonynak, az ILO budapesti iroda vezetőjének.
Köszönöm szépen. Thank you very much to Andrea and to the Association for the Advancement of Women's Careers for this invitation. I'm very pleased to be here. Yes, I'll move over here. I hope you understand English a little bit. Sorry, I don't speak any Hungarian. Okay, so we will have the presentation also in Hungarian in a minute. So I'll be talking about work-family balance policies, why they are important, and also what they actually are, key features, trends, and good practices from different national experiences. First of all, okay, yes, I can hear, now it's louder. Okay, so first of all, why are work-family balances, why is work-family balance and policies important? First of all, we have a very low fertility rate in many industrialized countries, and particularly a low fertility rate amongst educated women and highly educated women. So this will pose many problems in the future. We also have aging population, which again makes it hard to keep the pension system and the social security system. We also have changes in family patterns, more nuclear families, less large families, a rise in women's paid work, which of course increases the importance for childcare. And we have a persistent unequal share of unpaid care work globally, and particularly in some countries. We also have a growth in non-standard work and work intensification, so meaning an increase in informal economy and also atypical forms of work. We also have an economic crisis which very much affects Hungary, of course, and several other countries in Central and Eastern Europe, which puts more pressure on many workers. In the ILO, so I should have said first, the ILO stands for International Labour Organization. We are a specialized agency of the United Nations, and we have our sub-regional office here in Budapest. I came with my colleague Ildikó Rigol, who's actually Hungarian. So we're very pleased to be here. And I'm focusing on gender equality and working conditions. So what is the ILO framework on work and family? We have a convention number 156 on workers with family responsibilities. And in this convention, there's different parts. Provides for labor market integration through vocational guidance and training, care services, working time and organization, social security benefits, leave policies, and reducing unpaid work through basic infrastructure, which I believe is what Ildikó very much focused on. Getting children into childcare from early on, and particularly from 3 years onwards, which is a very important measure. And of course, it's provision of childcare services, of quality childcare services, and making them affordable to all families, which is very important. It's important, public funding for work-family policies is extremely important, and we can see globally, and I have the figures, but I won't be able to go into it because we don't have much time. We can see that as soon as countries invest in work-family measures, we have higher fertility rates, higher women's employment rates, and lower child poverty. And a good example for this is the Scandinavian countries. The design of work-family policy mix is actually equally important to increasing the spending. And important principles for this is promoting women's access to decent paid work. And we say decent paid work because the increase in atypical work and employment relationship leads to things like disguised employment, so that women and men who are actually working for a company are now made redundant, and then work as consultants. We have zero-hour contracts where there's no, for the worker, there's no reliance on any particular work, and workers are called in at the last moment. And we also have increased undeclared work in many countries. So this poses huge pressure, particularly on working women who want to make a career, and also workers with family responsibilities. So it's important to address family responsibilities as collective responsibilities rather than as problems for the individuals. It's also important to promote gender equality at large, to improve the equal share of family responsibilities between men and women, that it's not anymore seen as a women's problem. And particularly in a context of austerity measures, the policy should focus on social investments and innovative solutions for childcare. And they don't always have to cost a lot. A lot of you are in HD, you know that a lot of measures can also be done in very cost-effective ways. So what are the key features and trends of work-family policies? First of all, on maternity protection, it's important, of course, the length of the leave, health protection, cash and medical benefits, and employment protection, and also breaks for breastfeeding and providing space also for breastfeeding. Leave policies, again, of course, related to maternity leave. Family services are extremely important, and these are not limited to children. They are also there for elderly people and people with disabilities who might need care to reduce domestic care which are usually carried out by women. Then another important area is family-friendly working time and organization. And a lot of companies and organizations have introduced flexi-time, predictability of work, and teleworking, and also part-time work. For part-time work, it's often a problem that women, in many countries, women have the right to reduce to part-time work, but they don't necessarily have the right to go back to full-time work. So it's important, part-time work is very important, but it's important that it goes in both directions, that you can move easily between part-time and full-time work depending on the needs that are there. Some companies in Germany, like Volkswagen, have now introduced lifelong time sheets, so you can save up working time, let's say when you're young, when you have a lot of work, and you can use the saved up working time 10 years later when you might have a family, or 30 years later when your partner or parents might need care. So this is, I think, a very interesting concept to not just focus on, working time over a few months, but actually over a long period of time. Coverage, of course, is very important. As I mentioned, with increasingly atypical forms of work, it's important to cover all women. Duration, amount of maternity leave, and also where does it come from. And of course, the less it comes from the employer directly, the less employing young women are seen as a risk. If the employer has to pay for maternity leave, as is the case in some countries, they're less likely to employ young women in child-caring age. We won't have the chance to go into all of these, but I think it's clear what they stand for. Recently, we have also included adoption leave, emergency leave, and long-term care leave, again, specifically for elderly or people with disabilities. So some of the trends, you can see that there's actually a higher tendency globally to include also paternity leave, not just maternity leave, but to provide some leave also to the fathers, which has been an extremely important element. And Scandinavia started to have this daddy month, which is that you can only take the full amount of parental leave if usually the father, the other partner, takes some. So in other words, for example, in Germany, you're entitled to 14 months parental leave paid parental leave, and you only get 14 months if both mother and father share. If only let's say the father takes, then you will only get 12. So this has been extremely successful in bringing up the rate of paternity leave. What are some of the lessons learned? Short leave periods push women out of the labor force, even short periods. Very long leave without protecting the particular job she was in before can damage women's position in the labor force in the long term. The take-up rates tend to be high among women for parental leave, that is, and father's leave, as I mentioned, has increased. Men's take-up rates of parental leave are increasing. If there's some kind of earning-related leave, meaning that the leave is coupled to the previous income, a certain percentage of the previous income, rather than just paying the minimum wage, as, for example, is done in Australia, which then would be a huge drop, particularly for male wages. Individual and non-transferable entitlements, what I just said, linking part of the leave to both partners sharing, and then also flexibility in use, that you don't have to take it in one go, but that you can take 1 month here and 1 month there. So here are some of the countries' examples, what they are, and the ILO has a global database on parental leave, which covers about 60 countries. So if you're interested in how other countries deal with parental leave, I will give you the website in the end. It's actually a very interesting database, I think. On family services, Convention 156 on workers with family responsibilities gives guidance on this, that all measures shall be taken to develop or promote community services, public or private, such as childcare and family services and facilities. Key childcare issues, what I mentioned before, under threes, but also above threes, in many countries, lack of affordable quality childcare. And I believe this is also the case for Hungary, and it leaves the leave care gap. It means that women who want to work find it very hard, and for many women, I think also in Hungary, the private childcare is simply not affordable. Then they rather stay at home, which then leads to the other problems. Preschool education, as I think Ildiko mentioned before, extremely important, but again, it needs to be coupled with working times of women. School-age children out of school care is not well developed in many countries. You might have school care until 3 or 4, but many women and men have to work longer, and then often there's no care during the holidays, which again is a huge issue for children. So the ILO policy approach again would be to increase coverage for all age groups, starting basically after maternity stops, which in many countries is 4 months. Suitability means keeping parents' working needs in mind, increasing also shift workers. Some of the childcare in Australia is now geared towards shift, meaning it's 24 hours long. Doesn't mean that the children are in care for 24 hours, but it means that the parents can leave them overnight in case they have to do night work, like nurses and doctors and many other vocations. Affordability and quality, as I mentioned before, are extremely important. So to sum up, family-friendly working time and organization, it's very important to reduce the daily hours of work and to reduce overtime and have more flexible arrangements with respect to working schedules, rest period, and holidays. So thank you very much. This was really a very quick run-through. My initial presentation was much longer, but thank you very much for your attention. I really recommend you have a look at the global database, and there's a lot of text also on this website, which you might find interesting, and a lot of statistics. So thank you very much to Andrea.